Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
Welcome to another episode of the Healthy Perspective Podcast. Today we have the dynamic duo Katie Millhorn and Melissa K. Norris from Modern Homesteading. These ladies are each fourth and fifth generation homesteaders. I am super excited to just be talking about all aspects of homesteading, from the survival stage to the thrival stage to now teaching people, and really just get into the nitty gritty of what it's like to live a life, the homestead lifestyle, not just kind of a curated grow a couple carrots, type of thing, but what is it like to live a lifestyle of homesteading, and then give you guys an opportunity, an invitation really to just learn what that might look like for your area with the Modern Homesteading Conference coming up in just a couple months. So Melissa, Katie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So
excited to chat.
We talked a little bit beforehand. You guys are Katie, you're fourth, Melissa, you're fifth generation homesteaders. What was kind of the catalyst moment? Katie, we'll start with you to really make this your lifestyle, because I know there's a lot of parents that homestead and the kids go off to college and kind of do their own thing. It's not really for them. What has kind of been the reason why you guys have kind of continued this lifestyle for you and your family?
For me, I besides it always being a way of life, about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with lupus. And while we had always ate healthy and had, a whole beef in the freezer and farm fresh, food and a garden, and we canned, it really fueled the fire to do it more. I really didn't realize how much modern convenience food I had brought into our home that was actually triggering inflammation into my body. And simple things, I would still have grass-fed, organic beef, and then make tacos and have a flare up the next day. And it was, a simple taco package, a pre-made package. It's little things like that, in our modern day that really changed how I view what's in our home, the toxins in our shampoos and toothpaste and laundry, dryer sheets, little things like that really, they really fueled me to do more. I couldn't find soy-free, corn-free chicken. I couldn't find local pastured pork. There was no raw A2 milk. And I mean, in the true go-getter homesteader fashion, I was like, fine, I'm just going to go do it myself.
I like it.
And not only did that heal my body, and I've been in remission for 7 years, but it's also allowed me the chance to help others that are going through this journey, that have also been seeking out that stuff, that haven't find it locally, So it's been a blessing, a total godsend that I had an illness, and he showed me what I already knew. But he just reaffirmed what I was doing was the correct path. Yeah.
And I love that when a problem becomes an opportunity. You could go, woe is me, load up on medications and just say, this is a lot that I was given. I guess I'll just, play slots the rest of my life and not move a muscle. You know what I mean? But I love that despite feeling bad, despite, all the hardships that come with, being diagnosed and autoimmune as severe as that. I love how you just took it on and said, well, I know what to do, how to heal my body. That stuff is familiar with me. Now it's just making that my lifestyle 100%. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, it's really funny. Katie and I have very similar stories, but we didn't even know each other until about 2.5, 3 years ago. So very, very similar to Katie. I was raised on grass-fed, grass-finished beef, but honest to goodness, it was just because we couldn't afford grain. We couldn't afford weed killer. And so we were organic because we were too poor to not be organic. Wow. And now I look at it as like a huge blessing. But when I got out on my own, I was working full time as a pharmacy technician, so very much into normal, Western
Wow.
medicine, and really eating a lot of convenience foods. It's same as Katie. Like, we had our grass-fed, grass-finished beef because I tried to buy store-bought one time when I didn't manage my hamburger well, because we, butcher a whole cow at once, and I went through all the hamburger a little too
Oh
soon
gosh.
before butcher time. And because I was raised on that, I had never cooked any other beef. And I know that sounds really funny, but I didn't know the difference until I bought store-bought hamburger. And it was a lean package of hamburger meat, and it was not bad, but it was such a bright red, like fake color. And when I went to cook it, I could not believe all of the liquid coming out of it. And it smelled odd. And once you make that switch, you'll know what I mean.
Mhm.
But I was like, I told myself, I can't eat this. And so I always managed our ground beef from there on out. We've never run out of ground beef because I just can't eat the stuff that comes from the store. However, I wasn't making that distinction at that point in my life between other stuff. And there's a reason that as a society, we have turned to convenience foods, because if you're working outside the home and you're getting home at 7 p.m. at night and you're commuting 36 miles, it's really hard to get a home cooked meal on the table.
Yeah.
At 7 o'clock, if you want to, actually spend time with your kids and help them with homework and, get to bed at a decent time. So I actually developed stomach ulcers and GERD to the point where I was on prescription medications up to 6 times a day, but they weren't quelling the symptoms. And so at 29, I had just had my daughter, my second child. I went in for an endoscope because they actually thought that I might have they actually thought I probably had cancer, honestly.
Oh.
And so we went in for an endoscope, and they ended up biopsying my upper stomach and esophagus, 2 different spots, and it came back benign, but I had cellular change and erosion. And they said, if you don't figure out how to get a handle on this, and you can't be on these medications anymore at the doses you have been on and how long you've been on them, the next time you come in, it will most likely be cancer. And so at 29, with 2 babies and a husband, that was a really big wake-up call for me. And so I started really looking at everything I was consuming and what is actually in this, like reading the labels and realizing I had no idea what half the ingredients in those things were, and I couldn't even pronounce them. And so that set us on a trajectory to raising so much more of our own food. And just like Katie, trying to seek out locally places and even brands like in Costco at that point in time that didn't include a bunch of genetically modified ingredients or super processed ingredients. And either we couldn't afford them or I simply couldn't find them. And so that put us to raising, as much of our own food as possible, and then raising extra at the same time to provide to other local people, to other folks who want that same quality of food. So it's funny because we both had different diagnoses, but Katie and my stories are so similar. And I know we're not alone. I know there's thousands of people who have experienced the exact same thing, and in turn are wanting to return back to the modern aspect of homesteading, because we want those traditional skill sets, but there's a way to incorporate it into our modern lives now. And I think that's one of the key things. I mean, look at us right now. We're using,
Zoom.
we're using Zoom in order to talk about this and to get the word out and to help people. So yeah, that is how we both came to be in this spot.
I love it. Yeah. And like you said, I'm sure you're not alone, and what I love about the homesteading thing is the opportunity to ask questions and explore answers, rather than just like when you're in a typical education, it's like A, B, C, or D. Like, it's like there's no real process or experience involved with that mental or physical exploration. Or I wonder what happens if I do this. I wonder what happens if I do that, as a chiropractor. Well, I went to the University of Montana for my undergrad. Go Grizz. I don't know if you guys hate them or like them, but there's a store in Missoula called the Good Food Store, and it's kind of like a Whole Foods, like that sort of thing. And I was on a college diet. I worked at Cold Stone. I wasn't terribly invested in my health, but as I got closer to graduating, I started realizing, well, I took a couple classes that were nutrition focused and whatnot, and all my friends called this store the bad food store, like the ones that grew up there, because it's all your granola, all the stuff that they didn't like to eat. And I started going there to get my beef and like those sort of things. I lived in a house with 5 or 6 different guys, and I'd be cooking my meals, and they're like, "What kind of beef is that?" Or what is that? And I'm like, "This is the the bad food store beef." I'm like, "Why does it look so different?" It's like, well, it doesn't have any of that junk in there. Like think about how different like your venison or your moose or your elk looks and tastes compared to it's the tube ground beef from Walmart or like something like that. And then when I was back home, we had a butcher box subscription at the moment, or at the time, and I was cooking that beef and or like a porterhouse steak for my dad on Father's Day, and he's like, "Why is it that color?" And I'm like, "That's what color it's supposed to be." Like he's used like the gray, like probably been frozen for a couple of years and has all that junk in it. And it really is, when that becomes your lifestyle, and other people get a look into that, it's like, wow, that is different. My couple talks that you guys know this, that I'm going to be giving. The first one is the soil gut brain connection, and this is like the nitty gritty of why this lifestyle actually brings health to you. What kind of things have you guys experienced? Katie, I know your main thing is dairy. Melissa, I think your main thing is like the garden and like those sort of things. What type of things have you experienced when you're more hands-on with the animals or hands-on with the ground that you guys get to benefit beyond just like the A2 milk or beyond just the organic food that you produce? Katie, why don't you go first?
For me, the dairy has been such a blessing. And it's really funny, as much as I love to go out and milk my cows, there's days, when you have a flare up and physically that is the last thing you want to do. You do not want to get out of bed. You do not want to shower. You do not want to be physically active, let alone wrestle a cow or a new calf. And just to be able to go out there and by the time I'm done processing the dairy and, the cows are fed and watered, and I mean, it just loosens your muscles. And every time I go out there kicking and screaming when I'm in the middle of a flare, I come back up to the house and I'm just so thankful because I feel so good. And, it's one of those things where you think like, why did I choose to run dairy? Why do I have all these cows? They rely on me. I can't even rely on myself. And then you go and you get physically active, and it really does not only change your mindset, but it forces your muscles to be moving. And it's that mind over body. Like I have to take care of something bigger than me because they rely on me. And and I see that all the time. I have so many customer testimonies that they'll call me if the store runs out of my milk. They're my family hasn't been able to drink any milk besides yours in the last 10 years, or my autistic child has to have a specific A2 cream level, and you're out, and I just hear all these amazing praises of, our hard work of having the raw dairy and the cattle. And it's just it's reaffirming that, what we are doing is right. And, seeing the cows graze and the chickens follow behind the cows, and then the kids working with the cows, and it's a generational love. And I mean, obviously my children right now don't have a choice, but one day hopefully they make that choice to stay here on the farm. But the mobility of the cows, they have benefited me way more than I feel that I have blessed them.
Wow.
They've completely changed my life. I worked in internal medicine for 12 years, and you just call in sick to work.
Right.
If you can't make it,
Right.
it's not a fourth, where knowing something is out there hungry and thirsty, you get up and you take care of them, and then at the end of the day you're like, I feel really good now. I can function as a mom and adult.
Right. Yeah, and that's we just have one dairy cow, but there's definitely days when it's cold and rain. Well, Southern California, cold and rainy, but and muddy, and the cow is being stubborn and whatnot, that you're like, I just really don't want to do this. But every time, it's like you mentioned, it's like we have this milk, which is awesome, but getting out there and moving and getting over that mental hurdle, like it really just reaffirm like the limits that we put on ourselves, and then being able to break them when we just push through what the mind is telling us to not do. I love that. And, you know, a phrase that I always say, that the process is oftentimes more valuable than the product, right? I mean, even like the camping trip or the road trip or, you know, whatever, like we all look forward to the end, but it's really the process. That's where the memories are really
Yeah,
made, you know. Melissa,
for
what about
sure.
you?
Yeah. Yeah, completely have had the same experience as Katie, as in you don't really want to do it because you're not feeling so good. I mean, we all have those days, but there's also the act of discipline, which I feel like as a society, we've really gotten away from that, and also hard work. And the notion that we almost embrace as modern society that hard is bad. You know, we have like, where's the easy button, whatever commercial that comes from.
Yeah.
You know, we have that thing. And I think that we truly are setting ourselves up. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we actually see a lot of issues within society now, is because when you have the act of discipline, then even when you don't feel like doing something, because we all have days where we don't feel like doing something, but you have the discipline to stick to what it is you said you're going to do and your commitment. I mean, it serves you in so many aspects, but it also makes you proud of yourself in a good way. Like, you know, like I did this.
Yeah.
And having that and self-confidence for your mental health, because the physical aspects, of course, are there with this type of lifestyle and food that's raised in this way. And I think also I look at the days where I am outside with the animals and, you know, breaking a sweat and all of those things, and come in, and you are going to have days where you have sore muscles, but I sleep so good on those nights. I mean, yeah, I might roll over and be like, oh, that spot's a little sore, but it's just a different level of your sleep, and also like that satisfaction of knowing that you can do hard things, but also the relationship that you have with the animals. And even if you aren't at a place where you're raising livestock yet, the relationship that you have with the land, you look at seasons completely different. You start to see the way everything is interconnected, from how you treat the soil to how this plant responds to what the weather is doing. I mean, boredom is not a thing. There's so much that you're discovering and you're experiencing, and it causes you to even look at your relationships with other people in a different way. And I really think on a deeper level. And I think that that's something that we as a society of humans really need.
I agree.
sure.
We, you know, we, especially out here in Southern California, we're obsessed with making things comfortable, you know, and I love how you guys call the fast foods convenient foods, because that's really what it is, you know, and we can go down the rabbit hole. I'm sure Joel Salatin will do that for us at Modern Homesteading, but like just the amount of like work that we have to do, especially out here in Southern California, just to survive. There is no time to plant a garden. There is no time, you know, for this and that and the other thing, unless you know, you have a job where you can work online, or, you know, it's such a unfortunate thing for many families that are holed up in a 1-bedroom apartment and that's all they can afford, and, you know, whatnot. But that's the one thing that I love about the homesteading movement, is you don't necessarily have to have everything on your property to be in homestead. Like, what I love about the homestead kind of movement or lifestyle is the community that's involved. And this is what I really love about what you ladies are doing with the modern homesteading movement. You know, it's awesome that HOA, you know, Homesteaders of America, has been doing amazing conferences. You guys have been speakers in there at, you know, at multiple of them. What was kind of the catalyst to start doing your own thing?
So it's kind of a funny story. So I've worked with HOA for the last 6 years, and I've been really blessed to have them as, you know, friends and colleagues, and be at the conferences. And 1 year Melissa was a speaker, and so we were both obviously flying in from the Pacific Northwest to, I can't even remember if we were in Virginia or Tennessee at that event, but we were both there, and, you know, traveled. It took an entire day of travel to get there. You know, we're leaving our families, and, you know, you listen to talks, and people speak about, for me, it was, you know, grazing your cattle, or, during winter, go and pluck, some carrots or beets out of the garden for extra fiber and sugar levels for your cows, or how to raise chickens. And it's so different in the Pacific Northwest. And there's a lot of information out there on how to homestead, but not specifically when you have snow 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And that's where, we have found, I mean, as a 4th generation farm, what do you do when there's all this snow? How are you still active homesteading? How do you graze cattle? How do you do ethically and, economically when last year hay was $400 a ton. I mean, how do you raise something for not only you, but for other people and make it affordable?
Right.
And so both for, I think, Melissa and I, not to speak for her, but it was, there's so many people that are in this homestead movement and want to do more, but we're so caught up in our weather patterns that it's a hard stop. It's like, okay, great. I got a 90-day growing season. After that, like you're not homesteading. You're reading books about it and you're dreaming about it, but you can't actually do anything. So it was, how do we offer this? How do we take what we know and our contacts we know and our knowledge, and we bring this to the Pacific Northwest and help those people that want to do this 12 months out of the year.
I love that, because they have, in the South, and we have pretty decent growing season, while we are too. It's kind of different, but same, where you guys have snow, much of the year, but we oftentimes will be over 100 most of the summer, pretty much May through, I don't know, sometimes even to Thanksgiving. It's really, really hot. It's almost the same as snow. Like, we can put shade cloths and still, do those sort of things. And then water is another, big issue where they get rainstorms every year at 4 or every day at 4 o'clock just to nicely water the grass and, whatnot. Like, we got to pump it sometimes, 1,000 feet from the ground. And then you got power. And then, there's so many different things that go along. Not that it's not impossible, but there's a lot more things that you need to think through, casting a vision for your homestead rather than just, this is what I need right now. What are some of the topics that are going to be covered, Melissa?
Yeah, we have a lot of topics. So we're going to be covering, of course, gardening, and talking specifically about gardening within season. So I'm in Washington State, so I don't get as much snow as Katie, but I experience the rain, except for July and August when we get no rain.
Oh, gosh.
And so just like talking to what you're saying about the summer months, we're very wet throughout most of the year and cold to where nothing is really growing during those winter months. But then you flip a switch and there's no precipitation happening. And so you go from really wet to really dry. Like, how do you combat? And so how do you grow both produce as well as livestock and be able to flourish in those within each of these seasons? Because it's not a blanket approach for the entire year, like Katie was saying. And so we're really focusing on sharing how to do that, the growing wise in the garden, and then as well as preserving what does grow when it's growing. So how do you look at this growing time that you have for some of your different crops, as well as incorporating perennials, because perennials usually fare a little bit better in most cases than annuals, especially if you can look at some of your different native perennials and that type of thing. So layering that in, we'll be having permaculture and some orchardist talks, different things along those natures. So really kind of encompassing not just livestock, but as a whole unit, and how to incorporate those things within your growing season and the space that you have. And Chris, I'm going to push back a little bit, something you said earlier, and that is homesteading if you are working a day job, because my husband still works a day job, and I commuted as a pharmacy tech for 18 years, and we homesteaded during that time, including livestock. So you might not be able to do it at the same scale as if you're home all of the time, but you can definitely still do it. And that includes both garden and livestock. And so, and that was really what Katie and I wanted to bring with the people who we are bringing in as teaching, is the majority of them are homesteading in this area and have been doing so for a very long period of time. So they're able to share the things that they have learned over years of what's worked, what's not working in this area. And then, multiplying that across, I think, some 30 talks that we're going to be having there. And of course, in the kitchen, we're going to be talking about health. We're going to be talking about in the kitchen. And one of the other things that's often overlooked, which is really key too, is the actual management of it. How do you manage your household when it incorporates a garden and kids and livestock in seasons? Because it's not something that's often talked about, but if you don't have key management in place, then you're really going to struggle. So we're trying to make sure that we really encompass, and of course, herbalism and growing and health and using herbs, both for us as humans, but also with animals. And so we have a licensed herbalist and veterinarian, which is really unique and fun. We'll be talking about that. So within the holistic self-sufficiency movement, we really have tried to make sure that we're covering all of those pillar topics.
What are some, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So, something that's so, we see it a lot. Both Melissa and we're both moms. We're both business owners, and we're both homesteading full time. And such a hang up that we see all the time is, how do you homestead with children? How do you homestead when one of your partner doesn't want that lifestyle?
Yeah.
And so many of our speakers are the exact same. They're family people, they're business owners, and they're showing us, how to do it. I have milked more cows with babies on my back than I have not. And our speakers, they get that, and they want to share, how do you have, 6 kids and can everything you produce, let alone produce it, and still have this balance. And so we really, Melissa and I have handpicked our speakers this year based on, their knowledge of the Pacific Northwest, and the classes that they can share to benefit, people just like Melissa and I, like things we would want to learn as well.
Yeah. I love it. Curating an experience that you would want to go to, that you would benefit from. That's the only way to do something like this, because there is a lot of work, especially with the amount of people that you guys are expecting and have signed up. I love that. It's creating it like these are people I want to hang out with, I love that. Final kind of question for you guys. I don't want to take too much more of your time. What are some of the do level classes, because you talk about there's a lot of things to help plan your homestead and gardening and like those sort of things. What are some of the classes that people can go to, and then right when they get home kind of start implementing those things? Because I think that's also a really tough thing for some of these type of conferences, where it's like, great, if I could walk into 100 acres and whatnot, then I'd be ready to go. But what are some of the things that people could walk away with and apply right when they leave?
I think Melissa's talk is going to be a big one on, crops to grow to fill your pantry for the year. That while we're June, July, this time of the conference will be a little late for growing season. There's still a ton of stuff you can grow. And even if they've already started their garden, how do you preserve it? And that's something you can do right when you can get home. You can process your herbs. You can start fermenting. You can, work on a root cellar, things like that. You can, look forward into your pasture. Okay, now I need to mob graze my pasture. Daniel is speaking on that. And there's really nothing, in my mind, besides like, okay, I need to build a barn and get a family milk cow. And now we're going to process cheese and sell it, and we're going to quit our jobs, that you probably shouldn't do. But there is a lot of things that are entry level, and I think that's kind of people question that. Well, I live in an apartment. How do I homestead? Or, I have this barren piece of ground. How do I homestead? And so, like Melissa and I were saying earlier, all the speakers, they're all on different levels. So you could start out with garden planters, you can start out, you already have your cow, but there's a dozen things. But for me, the gardening is huge. Most people, some people, they're afraid of it, or what if I kill it? How do I process it? But Melissa's talk is going to be fantastic on that. And same with, of course, you can only butcher chickens if you have chickens. So there's Joel's talk. And then we're processing a hog as well. But there's a lot of entry level where you can go home and get started. And even if you can't get started with that specifically, you can start planning, which is probably the biggest part of homesteading, is just
Right.
planning it all.
Right.
Yeah. And I think too, for that time of year, like we will have, we're going to be having a talk on elderberries. And so even if you're not going to be able to plant elderberries that year, one, you're going to be able to plan to put them in, but you're going to be able to get elderberries or even get elderberry syrup. And you're going to know how it's helpful to the body and how to use that. And you can start implementing that right away. We've got a class on sourdough. I mean, anybody, apartment or not, can do sourdough. So you'll be able to go home and immediately start putting those things to practice. And we're having a cheese making demo. And so even if you don't have a milk cow, you can still get access to good milk, and you can start practicing and learning how to make your own cheese and different cultured dairy products, immediately, as soon as you get home. So there's a lot of those types of hands-on things that you can do. And that's going to be perfect that you can get started going with them while you're doing the planning thing. Because to Katie's point, so many people want to skip the planning part, because let's be honest, the planning part's not sexy. We want to jump right into the doing. But in order to do it well and for you to have that longevity, it's really key that you don't skip that planning part. So this gives you the capacity to do the planning, but also to do it hand in hand so that you really feel like you're getting forward progress by doing some of those things immediately. And we'll have both of those available. And we'll even have, with some of the vendors and sponsors that are going to be there, there'll be a lot of those tools like kombucha making. You can learn how to make kombucha. We're going to have demos on that. It's a fantastic summer beverage. And so you can get a SCOBY and get your tea right there at conference and go home and begin making that. So you'll be able to get some of the supplies as well right then and there to take home with you to jumpstart your journey as well.
Well, and your talk, Chris, about, what we're eating, the pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, you can go home and start reading labels. It's amazing at what we don't know is in our food, because they have really tricky labels. They say organic, but still have, toxins in them. Pasture raised, cage free, there's so many things that, once you go home, you can be like, okay, wait, I learned about all these toxins, and today we start over. Let's do better today. I met all these new farmers and ranchers at conference, and we're going to start buying our grain from a vendor I met there. We're going to buy our chickens from a vendor I met there. And we're going to get our seeds from the sponsor that I met there. And there's so many things. You can go home literally with your, starter package of homesteading.
And, conversely, because some people are like, yeah, I can go to these conferences and hear all these things. You can also go to a conference and be completely overwhelmed and get home and be like, I don't know what to do. So last question, I promise. How would you recommend people plan for coming to your conference? Because like you said, there's 30 different talks. You're not going to be able to attend all of them. How would you recommend people come in prepared to get the most out of what they need to start?
Yeah, I would say really look at what your biggest pain points are right now for you and your family. I mean, if you have someone that you can get grass-fed, grass-finished beef from right now, and you've got that good relationship and it's at a price point on your budget, and all of that, then I would suggest, if you don't have someone where you can get good pork from, for example, then go that right. But look at where your pain points are. Are you struggling in the kitchen? Are you struggling to find the foods for your family that you're able to afford? And then learning what that thing is and focusing on that. So if you really try to pick like 2 or 3 of your major pain points and then take the classes that go down that road rather than try to do it all, because it's, to your point, when you go to an event like that, you want to do it all. You are so inspired, like by listening to everybody, and your eyes get opened so much more, and you realize how much possibility there is for you to do, but also to make changes, which I find exciting, because I think it'd be really sad if I'm like, oh man, I'm stuck with where I'm at today. Like there is no more changes that I can make to further improve where we're at on our health journey. And even with Katie and I, who've been doing this for a very long time, there's still challenges with my own health. There's still new things that I'm dealing with. And if I didn't know that there was so much more that I could be doing, that would actually be a very sad place and depressing place to be.
Yeah.
I find it extremely hopeful to know that there's so many things that I can be doing, but picking where your biggest pain point is right now for you and your family and focusing on those things and getting those accomplished first, and then moving on to the next step.
I agree. Like find your focus. Maybe this year getting a dairy cow is not in the cards, but first you want to become physically active again and be healthy. Focus on your health this year. So, if that was me, I would go see, Dr. Chris. I'm going to go see Ashley Rowan. I'm going to go see Dr. Jones. And then probably not go, watch the pig get butchered, but instead focus on my pulse points, or vice versa. If your focus is, I want to garden, then you're going to go, Esther's elderberries and Melissa and just find the genres that you want this year. And then next year at, next year's conference, as you grow and adapt on your own homestead, maybe you're ready for chickens then. Maybe you are ready for milking goats. Maybe you're ready to build that shed. You don't have to do it all the first year. And I think that's probably the biggest fail homesteading is exciting. So everybody wants to just do it all. Yeah. But then with that comes burnout.
Yep.
50% of farmers quit farming in the first 3 years,
Wow.
75 within the first 5 years, because it's really hard and it's really overwhelming. So take it slow, pick what is most important to you, go to those classes, learn from them, go visit the vendors, and then next year we'll do something new.
I think those statistics are pretty much the same for businesses too, right? First couple years businesses start.
Yes.
5, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right?
Correct.
So people can go to modernhomesteading.com to get their tickets. Do you guys still have VIPs, or are those all sold out?
Those are all sold out. We don't have any VIP left.
No more VIP. So general tickets, what are those going for right now?
General admission. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
The general admission tickets right now are $149.
Perfect. Awesome. And it's June 30th through July 1st in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I don't remember the name of it, a fairground, but it's at a fairground. Beautiful time of year to be in Idaho. Like they said, 30 different speakers, a whole bunch of demos. If you're looking to just get into homesteading or level up your homestead, this is an event that you definitely want to go to. Katie, Melissa, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait for this to be published, and I'll see you guys in a couple months.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram at Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.